welcome back again. So what we're going to do this time is we're still kind of on the R, the read step in the CRUD, and we just want to display those hard-coded tasks prettier, right? So we're going to start using a custom UI TableViewCell. Now, admittedly here, it's not adding a ton, but instead of like writing starred below it as a subtitle, we're going to actually use a star. And we're going to make it such that these stars, if you click them, it'll actually like make it be starred. And it'll actually resort the list and all that as well. That's the long-term plan, I should say. In this video, we're just going to display them, right? That's our only goal. So the first thing we want to do is go create a new custom TableViewCell. So in our custom views, we're going to finally put a file in there. So we're going to say new file. Source CocoaTouch class, just like we usually do. This time what it's going to be is it's going to be a UI table cell. So go ahead and change it to UI table cell. That's not right. Table view cell. And then let's go ahead and name it. I'm just going to call mine task cell and just keep a nice short name. Make sure your language is Objective-C because that's what we're doing this time. I suppose I could have made one of them Swift just for fun, but I'm just kind of doing them all in Objective-C this time. And go ahead and create that file. Anytime you make a custom TableViewCell, you always have to have a class for it, right? So that's just kind of a required part of it. It's got some default things in here, awake from nib and if selected. I'm not actually too worried about those. So we're just going to wipe them out and start from scratch. So let's go over to the storyboard because that's where everything's going to really happen. So now we're in the storyboard. You can see that there's, I'll zoom out a little here. There's the list of list, and then there is the task list. And so this prototype right here is the one that we're going to be messing with. So right here, this prototype, it's currently a subtitle and it's called a task cell. So we're going to leave that. But instead of subtitle, we're going to change it to custom, which you can see changes its look over here. And then we're going to actually make it be one of those task cells that we just made. Cool. So the nice thing about that is now that object is a task cell, and that's the same thing we did with like view controllers. Like we made it be, a task view controller, and then we can connect outlets and things. That's what we're going to do here. So we're going to connect some outlets. So whenever you connect outlets, you just use the little two circles there. I'm going to give myself a little bit more screen real estate. By default, it's showing you the task view controller, and that makes sense because usually we would connect outlets to him. But instead, what we want to switch it to, and so instead of automatic, mine doesn't show the task cell in here, so I'm just going to manually go find it. I think once I connect to it once, it'll remember that I might want to use it, so I think it'll remember. But I'm just going to go into custom views, task cell. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start making connections into this guy. I just realized I got ahead of myself. I should add stuff to it before I start making the connections. So I'll come back to that. So the first thing I want to do is I want to add a button. So this button is going to sit right in here. I'm going to go ahead and make it to where it's kind of got the left margin guide and then kind of the middle guide. And this button, what we're going to do is we're going to make it a custom button. We're going to delete the word button out of it. And instead, we're going to use an image. As a placeholder, I'm going to put in a gold star, because I think the gold star kind of looks better. You'll notice the gold star image file is actually huge, and that's fine. We're going to add constraints to it, to where it's tied to the left. I'm just going to uncheck this relative margins. I'm just going to make it 8. And I'm going to make its width and height, instead of the size that the image is, 30 by 30. So I'm going to add those. You'll notice I have not yet added a Y constraint, and that's because I'm just going to center it in the content view. Easiest way to center it in the content view is just to right mouse click drag from the button onto the content view and just say center vertically in container. That should make my red go to yellow. So it did. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to fix that misplacement. And hopefully I've got a little, I know what it did. It did what it was supposed to have done. I just forgot how the system worked. when you add a constraint of align to center, it lets you keep whatever offset it's currently at. So I had an offset of -50. I do not want that, right? I want 0, and now it'll pop up into the right spot. Cool. So we've got a button on here. I'm going to rename it to be the star button. That's optional because the name over there doesn't really matter. And then what I'm going to also add is a label. And so you'll notice that this feels exactly like it did when you were doing view controllers, right? So I mean, you bring it over, you add some constraints. This one I'm going to uncheck the relative to margin, and I'm going to put on tops and bottoms of 10, just because I think that looks about right, and lefts and rights of 8. So it basically goes all the way over. I'm not going to set a height on it. I'm just going to let those guys kind of rule the roost as far as where it's going to be. Cool. So now we've got these things worked out. If you notice little nuances, you'll notice that I chose to just center the star, whereas with the label I chose to attach it to the tops and to the bottoms. And that's just because, like, there are ways you can make labels. So let's say that we made it to where it could be more than one line. And I wanted to make sure that it didn't ever grow bigger than the cell. Whereas the star, I know that it's always 30. Now, so long as it's one line, it will never grow bigger than the cell. But if you change it to 0, it would. And then you would be happy that I put a top-bottom constraint on there for you. Details, details. What I really want to do is I want to connect these things. So I've got my star button, and so you can connect it. Either you can drag from the graphical display or you can drag from the outline, does not matter. So this is my star button. And then I've also got my task label. I kind of like putting like the word label at the end of it. It just helps me remember what type of variable that is. And so those things are great. The other thing I want to do is I want an IB action. So I'm going to right click drag from this guy and change it to action. And I'm just going to say pressed star button. Great. So I really like how easy they make it to make custom table view cells, because you can use all these tricks that you already know. I will mention that if you ever have interest, I'll hop to it here in the slides. If you ever have interest, the way we're doing it is the easiest way, and it works great so long as this custom cell only appears in this view controller. But if you want some more information, here's a slide with how you can make a reusable table view cell by making another file called a zip file, also called a nib file. So I just wanted to throw that out there. But this is the easiest way to do it. The downside is that it's only usable in this one view controller, but if you want the same custom cell in multiple view controllers, that's also possible. Cool. All right, so we've got some awesome connections going on here. Let's go see what we can do in code and kind of do some more things. So the whole job of a table view cell is to display a task. So we need some method to pass in the task that it's displaying. There's a couple ways we could do this. We could create a property for a task. That would be totally acceptable. I happen to know that we're going to be doing a lot of things to configure this cell. So if I didn't have foreknowledge, I probably would have created a property. But instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a function called configureCell for task. And I'm going to pass the task in this way. It doesn't know what task is, so I either have to import it or forward declare it. I'll be good. I'll just forward declare it. So this configure cell, right now they're just passing in a task. Someday they're going to pass in even more stuff. Let's go write this configure cell for task. So somebody's going to create one of these cells, and then they're going to call this configure method on it. So the idea of this configure method is that if we wanted to set the task labels text to whatever the task is. I knew when I picked my names that I was going to run into that issue. I have to import task.h, and now you can see if I want to, it'll auto-complete it, right? So the task has a task on it. Hopefully that makes sense to you. And then we also want to set the icon depending on whether the task is starred or not. Same trick as before. We're going to have to check the bool value of starred. Cool. So if it's starred, then we want to use the star image. So you can see that there's a gold star and a gray star image over here. The way this works is we're just going to say self.star button. I think that there's a set image for state. So the image, we're going to create a new UI image, image named. So this is when it is starred. This image is going to be called gold star .png. For state, we want the UI control state normal, like a type. Cool. And so if it is starred, do that one. It's probably easier just to see the finished code and then just copy it, right? Because it's not hard. It's just hard to follow me when I'm typing. And if it's not starred, we want to use the gray star. Cool. So if somebody calls configure cell, we're going to set this thing up. As far as the press button, we're just going to log to make sure it works. So we'll just say, you press the star. Good for you. Great. And we'll deal with that in a later video. We're just trying to get this thing to show up. So we've made a prototype. We've made the custom cell. The thing that's missing still is tying them all together, right? So we've got a to-do in here. So this is cell for row at index path within the task view controller. And it says to-do later, use a custom cell. It's time for that now, right? So you can delete what we did before. If you want to comment it out, that's fine as well. And then we're just going to start doing it a new way. So this new way we're going to do it, I need to comment out even more. So go even higher. So kind of starting from the top, yikes. I copied these two because some version of these is going to be useful to me. So instead of a UI TableViewCell, we're actually going to be making a task cell. We need to import task cell. So I'll just add that import at the top. There's taskcell.h. I suppose I could check to make sure my alphabetical order is still good. It seemed to be okay. So we're going to create a new cell, but we know now that it's a task cell, and we know that because we set it up in the storyboard. We're going to get the task for the row, which is great. And then what we're going to do is we're going to call on the task cell configure cell for task, task for row. In fact, that's simple enough that now we're going to inline it, right? So instead of even making a variable, we're just going to do it there. So the nice thing is that it actually made this a lot shorter, right? So you can see it was this giant long thing before. I'm just going to delete it. And so now we've got this really cute little method that just says, hey, DQ a task cell, and then configure cell for the task. So if it works now, what should happen is we should see our pretty new custom cell. We should have pretty stars next to it. So I'm going to go into iOS Dev. And sure enough, it's got pretty stars next to it. If you click a star, expect to be disappointed, right? So it just says, you pressed the star, good for you. If you click in the cell, it does not say that. It only says that if you actually click on the star. Good for you, good for you, good for you, good for you. Cool, going to catch the slides up just a little bit. So we made a configure cell method. We've got a placeholder for press star. And then we use this task cell over in the task cells view controller, and it looks like it works. Great. So we'll pick up from here next time. We're going to actually handle that callback better whenever somebody presses a star. But we've got the display working. We're using our first ever custom view cell. Pretty happy with where we're at. All right, see you next time.